we trade energy, and I'm heading a development team who's still in London. I work here, but the team is still in London, and we do the trading and risk management system for this firm. And it's done in the front end is done in React and Redux and Webpack, and the back end is done in C# and Python. And so what the system is doing, it's a front to back flow. So it helps set up clients, you help you book trades, it helps you value your trades, figure out if you make money or if you lose money on a trade. Helps you with risk management. It also helps you to create invoices, so your clients can pay you, and these kind of things. And it's all done in the web. And the real reason I'm here is, since I just moved here, I want to sort of get into the community, because I plan to hire some guys in the future. So I want to sort of get to know everyone. So I thought a good way is to have a speech, and then everyone will recognize me, and sort of that's why I'm here. And I just wanted to start by giving like a little bit of evolution of trading systems. So this is how every firm has it. So you have your old systems, which are sort of native apps. If you're lucky, they're written in Java or C++. If you're unlucky, they're written in some older languages. I started working on the stock exchange in Stockholm, and their system was written in C, and they didn't even use Unix to host it. They had some other system called VMS. I'm not sure if you heard of it. It's basically so old. So the guys who wrote it had retired and shut down their firm. So the exchange had to buy that company just so they could get support for their servers, basically. So you always have that. They're old. They're still used because they work. No one knows how they work, but people still use them. Then you want to modernize. So you usually hire a bunch of people like me, like quants, who knows a lot about the math and sort of the models. And we start to modernize the back end. So we write like a new sort of valuation framework. And then at some point we need to present our results to the users. And there's this guy, I'm not sure if you know who he is. His name is Govert. He has an open source library called Excel DNA, which is amazing. So it's a C# library where if you write your code in C#, you can give it a tag. So it's an Excel function. And then when people install, they can install like an add-in to Excel, and they have all your functions in Excel. So that's sort of the standard next step. You start by modernizing the backend, and then you give spreadsheets to your users, where they can type in like the library, give me this data, give me this report. And this usually works really well. So you end up having a lot of these spreadsheets that you give to your traders, and they sort of use it and they sort of customize it for them. So you give them a report, and then they use Excel formulas to sort of modify the data in the way that they actually want it. And then they send it back to you when something's not working, and you sort of figure out, okay, this is what they really wanted. And you sort of learn that way. And then once you've done that for a few years, and you sort of say, okay, now I have all these tools, I have this amazing backend, now it's time to go to the web, which is sort of the next step of the evolution of a trading system. And this is sort of, every IT manager's wet dream, because then you don't need to install anything, right? People just type in on Chrome and they just have the system. It works on their phone. You can bring it to clients. You can tell your clients, look, log into our website, and we have all this amazing functionality for you. So this is sort of the step. And unfortunately, it's not always these don't replace each other, so they usually live like in parallel. So you will have, like at Nordea, I used to work at Nordea here in Copenhagen, and we spent like a couple of years moving some reports from Excel onto the web. And we showed it to the traders, and they said, "Oh wow, is there any way we can get it in Excel, the data?" That was the only comment we got. And it's sort of, that's just how it is. You have these three things. They're not really replacing each other. They're just living together. And at CF Partners, if you take time back to December 2015, it's almost 1.5 years ago, we were sort of on the middle page in the evolution. So they had an old system that I was hired to replace. We had done this amazing business layer in C#. We used WCF, which is Windows Communication Foundation, to have like a server. We would run all the calculations. We rented the second most expensive computer on Amazon, so we could run all calculations in parallel, and that was sort of super cool. We had all these spreadsheets that the users were using, like spreadsheets to get prices, to manage their trades and their risk kind of thing. Then we had two databases. We had a Mongo database, which is a JSON database. I'm sure you know that, where we had all the prices, and then we had used Django to build a SQL database for trades and client information. And at this point, we sort of say, okay, we're pretty stable. Now it's time to sort of go to the web. So what we did was that we hired a contractor. So we hired this guy. I'm sure you all worked with him. Seemed super brilliant. He showed us some things he's done, were just amazing. Looked really, really cool. But we kind of knew that he was a bit weird. So, but we thought, okay, we give it a shot, and we said, fine. Can you pick a framework? Because we knew nothing about JavaScript. So we said, okay, can you pick a framework, either Angular or React? And he picked React, and I said, fine, okay, why should we use React? And he said, oh, it's because, Mark Zuckerberg, he really knows his things, kind of thing. I said, awesome, that's sounds like a good reason. He started making some pages, and they looked really good. I mean, they were really, he was very good at making things look good. He didn't use Redux, so all the pages were stateless, which was actually really cool. So basically, in the URL, you would have all data. So if you had a report, say I want all the trades for yesterday, it would say the app is called Hero. So it would say Hero/trades/ yesterday's date, 15th of May. Which was actually really cool, because you could then take that and send it in an email to someone. So if you had when you had more advanced reports, you could configure it and then send it to your boss. And he would click on the link and he would get exactly what you had, which I thought was really cool. Then, after a few months, things started to go a bit wrong. So he basically tells us that he found God and just walks home, kind of thing. When we are 2 weeks from releasing sort of the first form. So far it's only been read-only things we've been doing. So to be fair to him, I think maybe that's true, but I also think this stateless thing didn't really work with the form, because you had a lot of data that you had to fill in, and I just think that approach didn't really work. So we were left with no one. We told our managers that it was only 2 weeks left before we were ready. So we started looking for a replacement, right? And everyone said, okay, everything is done. You just have to throw it out and do it again from scratch. So okay, fuck. So so we find another guy who also seems really good. he says, okay, I can't work with this. So we have a code base called Hero, and then he created Hero 2 in our sort of repository. So I'm going to do it from scratch. It's going to take 3 weeks. I said, okay, fine. I'm 1 week late. Let's do that. And they said, oh, I'm going to use Redux. That's what the cool kid's using. I said, oh, okay, fine. The other guy used Grunt, if you heard of it. He said, oh, you can't use Grunt. It's obsolete. I said, okay, why? He said, no, the cool kids use Webpack. We have to use Webpack. I said, okay, why? He said, oh, you know, if I change my code, I don't have to press F5 for it to come up on the screen. I said, oh, okay, okay. I guess that's kind of useful. But so we let him run with it, sort of, and it took like longer and longer, sort of, before it got ready. Eventually, actually became ready. But sort of the partner's patience has sort of run out. So when I came back on, we went live with the system, with like the trade booking functionality of the system. Then I went on vacation for 2 weeks. Then I come back, and my manager, which is the partner of the firm, said, look, you have this guy for 2 more weeks, and then he's out. So I'm tired of paying for contractors, just redoing everything. So that's what happened. I said, okay, fuck it, I have to learn this myself now. So I had 2 weeks to learn it, and so we replaced with this guy. I just want to give you my CV, as you understand what sort of I knew. I have a master in physics from Stockholm. I have more than 10 years of experience as a quant analyst, which is sort of modeling financial derivatives in banks and stuff. I know a lot about Brownian motions, how to simulate things in parallel, and how to value options and those type of contracts. I had used HTML in the 1900th century or 1990s. I didn't know what CSS was. I had never written JavaScript. So basically what I did was I opened YouTube and I found like the basic React course. And then I found this Redux course from this Russian guy on Facebook. That was really good. And then I had 2 weeks training with this contractor. And now I want to show you the result. So, let's see. So here we have the beauty. So it's called Hero. It's a trading app. It's running in this debug mode, so it's a bit slow. It's basically 2 forms and a bunch of reports. And the reports are all sort of using the same thing. So I'm gonna show you something. So if you want to book a trade, you go in here. Oh, I'm gonna hide this. Oh, maybe I should start here. So this is sort of I'm sure you guys know this better than me, but this is sort of our state. So we have the session where we save the token that you get when you log in. Also the username. Then we have containers. So the containers are basically every page. Every page that you can go to from here is a container, so it has its own sort of data in the state. I can't really say why that is. This is what the cool kids are using. That's what I would say. But that's how we did it. And here's sort of the main form. It's a trade booking screen. So you have like 3 tabs depending on if you're a trader, a broker, or a sales guy. The form will look a bit differently. I mean, it's just like a different config. So if you go there, you have slightly different instruments, slightly different things. So a trade is a date when you do the trade. It's a buyer and a seller. So the buyer could be like an airline. Seller would be us. Then it has some other things that I'm not going to go into. Then you have an instrument, a quantity, and a price. And the instruments are basically other forms. So it's a nested form. So you have this form, and then if you want to add a swap, we use this React modal that we learned, which is, we have another form that comes up. We use this a lot, you will see, the modal thing. So this is just another form. So a form for us is some form fields and a button, like a submit button kind of thing. So here you say, okay, I'm going to do a swap, which is a financial contract. I'm going to do jet fuel, which we sell to airlines. This is the currency. And these things are kind of linked. So if you delete the product, all these things disappear. Because basically, not all combinations are valid. So you don't want the users to be able to choose everything, because they will choose wrong things. So typically what the user knows is the product he's trading. He doesn't know these details. So we have to pre-populate with sort of the most common choice. And if we change it, if someone wants to change it, it's someone who actually knows what he's doing, kind of thing. All right, so that's sort of the instrument form. It's sort of you choose your product, your period that you want to trade. You choose your payments. I'm going to pay 5 days after the month. And you create it. And this is now created to the database. And you have it here. So you have now your date, your buyer, seller, your instrument, quantity, and price. This is sort of a trade. And then we did a lot of thinking. We used the modal again here to display what's going to happen in this contract. So if you trade this one, you're going to have all these events. So this is mostly cool from the backend side of things. Sort of, what is a financial contract? It's a list of events, things that will happen. It could be like a payment, a delivery. And we have this sort of model where you can have events that are contingent on other things. So if this happens, then your contract goes into this. If it doesn't happen, it goes some other path. This is sort of the form. And then we have a lot of reports. They're all, from a front-end perspective, are all the same. It's a table, which we call hero table, which is basically, it's a JSON who sends from the backend, and it produces an HTML table. I'm going to show you something. This is a credit report. So it's sort of... So from the user, this is very useful information. It's like all the clients, their name, their rating, how much money they owe us, how much credit we've given them. So if they owe us more than that, we need to ask them to give us collateral. How much credit they given us. So if we owe them more, we have to post collateral to them, kind of thing. Then you can open it to sort of see per product per month. So you can sort of figure out when are these payments going to happen. But from a front-end perspective, it's just a table. It's the HTML table that has another table inside it, kind of thing. And this one could also have, so you can have like infinite nested tables inside it. And this, I mean, I'm not going to show you more reports because they all look the same. Like we have the payment report, which are all the payments we're going to have. And you can do, like, I'm going to search for the next 5,000 days, 500 days, all the payments. And you can say, oh, who am I paying to, kind of thing. And then the last thing I'm going to show is we also use D3 to do some nice plots. So if we do like this German shipping company, you can click on it and you get to like the trader or the client page where you have all the information about the client. So you have like the rating, who rated them, the credit lines. You can have like all the trades that they have. Here we actually use another table because this was done by the old guy before we created this hero table. So it's kind of the same idea though. So you have all the instruments there, and then you have simulations. So this is sort of a nice little graph. So it's kind of cooler from sort of a financial perspective than a front-end thing, but it's basically, we simulate from today to the last date of all their contracts, and we run tons of simulations, and we sort of say, the green one is all the best case scenarios where we make most money, and the client owes us a lot of money. And you can sort of see how this is the biggest credit risk we take, because if they go bankrupt here, they're going to owe us 400,000 euros. We would lose that kind of thing. And then I'm going to show you one more thing before I continue. We have the Invoice, which is actually super advanced for a trading system to do from the web. So we have an invoice. If you want to do an oil invoice, you select your counterpart. Then you select your currency. You invoice per month per currency. And we're going to do like May. And generate an invoice. And here it is. And so that's like our logo, our contact details, our payment instructions. These are all the trades they had in the month. This is how much they have to pay us, kind of thing. And then you can save this as a PDF file. And then unfortunately it doesn't look so good when you save it. Because basically the way we save it is like a Ruby on Rails thing, HTML to PDF, which doesn't render in the same way as Chrome. So I'm not going to show that. But this is sort of this is what we have built. Sort of when I took over, which was 8 months ago, we didn't really have much. And we sort of done this, and we just had to learn ourselves. And I want to stop by sharing some lessons that I've sort of lessons learned from me. Just things that you might end up doing if you don't know what you're doing, kind of thing. Because learning JavaScript is hard. I found it's really hard. Like the hardest thing is there seems to be no standard. So you read on Google and they're like, you get 5 different answers, and how do you know which one is the best? And next week seems like there's something else that you should be doing. So this is probably really basic, but lesson one is, if you need to do nested stuff, you should do it by actions. So what I mean with that is, you have your React. So basically every container, every page has these 3 files, right? We have the JSX, we have the render function, which is the pure function of the state of your app, and it returns a div kind of thing. So you take your state and you return a div that you can render on the screen. Then you have your action.js, where you write these type of functions, dispatch get state, and you're going to dispatch some actions. And why do you do that? You do that so you can change the state, right? So if someone clicks on your page, you need to update your state. You dispatch some actions. And then where is the state actually changed? It's changed in the reducer, right? So in the reducer.js, you write these functions that take current state and an action and return the new state. And now, there are many places where you actually have to do many things, like what I showed you there. We have these nested things. So if you update the product, like I'm going to trade jet fuel, it's traded in dollars. So we need to then update. First, we need to update the product. Then we need to update the currency to dollars. Then we need to update a lot of different things. And you should really do that by dispatching many actions. So you first dispatch, update the product, then update the currency, then update the fixing provider. This is sort of very natural. If you do that and you look in your debugger, you're going to see all these things, right? So you can debug and say, look, first I'm dispatching this, then this, then this. And you can easily see if something goes wrong. There is actually another way you can do this, which is what I did, which you can do it in the reducer. So when you get one action, you can actually change your state all over the place. Because this is what I did. And the reason I did it, because I didn't know how to do a callback function. So this guy had a form field where it was dispatching one action that said, user selected this value to be this. This was sort of the action. And the reducer was updating that part of the state with the new value. And I ended up there, and I didn't know how to change that callback function. So I just said, fuck it, I'm gonna now say, okay, if like a hard code, if the like the parameter name was underlying product, then I'm also gonna change the currency. And I have like this hard-coded map of like all these products are dollars, all these products are pounds or whatever. And it works. I mean, you can do that. I can show you how. I'm not sure if maybe this is too small, but this was my I call it super reducer, which is basically, so if form fields, this was the action that the contractor had written. Form field set field data by user. And so, okay, if it's this one, I'm first going to call the common reducer, which was the one he wrote, where you update the place of the state. And then I say, oh, if it's underlying, I'm also going to change the currency to my mapping table. And I'm also going to change the payment type to whatever is the standard payment for that underlying. And this sort of works, right? I mean, the form worked the same, but it's really hard to figure out what's going on. Because if you just look at it, you don't see anything. You just see update. You see this. Form field set field data by user. Field name is underlying. And then it's it changes all over the place. Which is not recommended. I mean, we had a lot of problems with this. Someone told me that I had hacked Redux by doing this this kind of thing. The other lessons learned that I actually think something I did good was the inheritance. I'm not sure. I probably didn't invent this, but I didn't learn it from someone. Which is when you're a backend developer, it's really these things are very natural for you with inheritance, right? So you typically start by writing your interface, and then you maybe have an abstract class. So basically, the interface defines your behavior. You have no implementation. You just say, this object is going to have these functions, these parameters. Oh, sorry. I'm almost done. And then you have your abstract class, where you have some sort of some implementation. And you maybe can't implement for every type of object, so you write some functions abstract, which means if you inherit from that one, you have to implement those kind of thing. And then I asked the guys in my team, so why do we do this? And they gave me all these nice reasons, like interfaces are easy to mock when you unit test and stuff. But the real reason why we do it is so we don't have to copy paste code, right? So if you write the function here, you don't have to rewrite it down there. That is the real reason why you have inheritance, I think. And this I found a lot in when I'm writing React as well. So if you do this is sort of a similar thing. So you have your form field, which is a React component. It could be a date picker or an input field or whatever. Then you have a form, which is a generic component, just a list of fields and a button, submit. And then I have a trade form, which sort of extends this one, saying this is a form for a trade, to book a trade. And then I have these three types. They just have different config files. And then when you do that, in our pattern, since every container, since these are all containers, has their own reducer, it ends up being, you end up doing this a lot. Like this is the reducer of trade block. Just calling the trade form reducer, saying that I called it from trade block. And then that one is just calling the form reducer, saying I call it from trade form, but it was called from trade block. And then in the end, you sort of, you actually do the changes. And you can do this, and you can basically extend it. So this one extends that reducer. So what it means is, if it gets an action, it might do something, or it might call its parent kind of thing. Which to me is very similar to doing this, right? If you have C# code where you say, I'm gonna return a name. So I'm gonna get the base name, and then I'm gonna add it with something, and that's what I'm gonna return. This is sort of something that I find myself doing this a lot, where I have sort of, I do some generic implementation, and then I extend it by my sort of specific things. The last one is, okay, I'm gonna wrap it up. Yeah, I just dropped the last one. Sort of next steps here is what I would like to talk to you about afterwards is we're going to make this modular. We're going to make it, this is sort of what I have to work on for the next year, is how to make it configurable. So instead of like hard coding all the pages, I want to have modules and maybe have a config in the database saying if the user is this type, show these type of pages for him. And we also, right now, it's just, we don't have live data, so we want to sort of see how this works when you're actually streaming data and not just doing ad hoc reads. All right, that's all.